Maloney Show with David J. Maloney. This week, David talks to Biloxi librarian and historian Jane Shambra and boxer J.R. Flowers. With the Mo Giles Band, now here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome to everyone at home, and I would normally say our studio audience, but we are here again in the historic Saenger Theater without an audience. I am your host, David J. Maloney. To my left now, the Mo Giles. If you were unaware, Facebook has launched a new dating app. Statistics show online dating was responsible for 17% of marriages last year. Ironically, it was also responsible for 40% of divorces. Wikipedia recently went offline for several hours due to technical issues, leaving millions of us scrambling for reliable sources of unreliable information. According to a new study, people lie more when they're texting. In fact, 90% of people who text LOL aren't actually laughing out loud. And neither is my absent audience. There's a little delayed reaction there. Oh, he was texting. He was texting LOL, that's why. In Florida, a gypsy fortune teller pled guilty to scamming a client out of $1.6 million. Hopefully this isolated case won't reflect poorly on all gypsy fortune tellers. And lastly, actress Linda Hamilton recently revealed that she's been celibate for 15 years. She recently had a birthday, so if you want to send her a gift, I suppose you can't go wrong with batteries. If you've never seen the weekly show before, keep watching. We typically feature one local guest, somebody who you may already know or want to know more about, and one big-name guest. This week, we are here again on location inside the beautiful Saenger Theater in Biloxi as we spotlight this historic Biloxi staple. On this week's show, we've got the City of Biloxi's local history librarian, Ms. Jane Shambra, to talk about the Saenger, and then fighter J.R. Flowers, who's got a truly remarkable inspirational story. You don't want to miss it, so stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back. Our first local guest is the head local history librarian for the City of Biloxi and is here to help walk us through some of the Saenger Theater's storied past. Please give a warm welcome to Ms. Jane Shambra. So, Jane, well, first of all, you're the local history manager. What exactly is that?
It's complicated. I'm the local history and genealogy librarian located in the Biloxi Library for the Harrison County Library System, but I manage the collection. And it's different from a regular library because you can't check out books. You can come and do research. We have all kinds of amazing pictures and newspapers and city directories and all this. So we have people from all over coming to visit us to do research. It's very different.
Now, you've got, from what I understand, you got a bit of a fascinating background yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I grew up in the New Orleans area, in the Bywater district. I went to school there, got both my undergraduate and my master's degree from the LSU system, UNO. And then eventually I moved here, started volunteering, and it's been uphill all the way.
Now, you've got an interesting family background, though, too, yeah?
Okay, so my family comes from the German coast, which is along the Mississippi River on the way between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And so we lived there for a very long time, and then we moved to New Orleans, and then I have 2 sons and 8 grandkids.
Now, how did your family background play kind of a role in doing what you're doing now?
Okay, and that's kind of amazing because I didn't learn this until later, but I found out that my first ancestor that was here landed on Ship Island in 1720, and he was instrumental in settling this whole area, wound up in the French Quarter, and then had kids and kids and kids. So, and it took a while to learn this. You know, somebody's history, genealogy, what happens here, what's going to happen here. It's an adventure. So I was lucky to be part of that history as well.
Now, you told us a little bit about what you all do. Mm-hmm. Where are you all located?
We are located in the Biloxi Public Library at 580 Howard Avenue, right down the street in one of the yellow buildings right next to the Civic Center.
Now, we're here, and we're doing a series of shows here in the historic Saenger Theater right here in Biloxi. There's obviously a history here. How does that kind of tie in with what you guys do?
Well, it's pretty interesting that you would ask this question, because recently there's been an influx of people coming to know what's the history of the Saenger, how can we save it, how old is it, what was here before. So people who are developers, people who wanted to do the bricks down the street, people who want to develop the downtown area have been coming to us and trying to figure out what's the history of the Saenger, how can we just keep this building going strong. And so we're the answer, because we can do historic properties, we can look up things. Sometimes we find things we're not looking for. We have the old newspapers and so forth. So everything is a treasure hunt and certainly a great adventure as well.
In fact, I thought I saw a newspaper article in there. I don't know if it was an old one. It may have been a more recent one, but you brought some materials with you.
I did, and I found all kinds of pictures. It's not enough. We never have enough pictures in our collection, and we can't find everything on Google, so we need to emphasize that. One of the things I brought was a series of pictures that I took having to do with the cornerstones of this building. It was renovated several times. It was built in the 1920s. So if you want to look up the history of a building, one of the ways to find out is to look on the building itself, the big stones. Sometimes they cover them up or they put them in the foyer, but there's a lot of information.
Usually a cornerstone,
yes.
An actual cornerstone that will have when it was erected or habit. That's the way they used to do it, at least.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how they do that now, but instead of going through sentences and paragraphs about the mayor at the time was so-and-so, and the councilman was so-and-so, and the builder was so-and-so, you can just look at these simple words. It's very well formatted, and you can learn all about the history of this building. There's also another cornerstone, which is more like a plaque, and it's a historic symbol of Biloxi's buildings and so forth. So there's about 4 of them. So if you visit the outside of the Saenger, you don't even have to come inside. You can see all of this history just right there in front of you.
Now you brought some photos, so I guess why don't you share some of those with us?
Sure.
And kind of tell us what each thing is and what it means and what its relevance is.
We recently we're always looking for something. And so recently we came across several pictures that we were not looking for. This apparently is a picture of when the Saenger was first opened. There was a series.
What we may do is if we can hold them vertical, it's easier for the camera to get them like that, and we'll share them. Okay, so go ahead, tell us what this is.
So this is very scratched, so you can tell that the negative wasn't in the best of condition. But it's a picture of all the windows and doors and the entry points and the
kind of where they take the tickets right there.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And it's not dated, but we know it's old. So everything is a mystery, and we would love to know more about it, but that's a starter. Okay, so this one's upside down, but
so good.
We think this was when, right after urban renewal. So every time you look at a picture, it's like a picture puzzle. When was it taken and all this stuff. So we see that urban renewal has already filled in the Rue Marché. It's already called the Barks Building, so it had to be probably in the 80s. But if you look at the Saenger, every picture that you look at looks very much alike.
All you have to do is just look for people with big hair.
Yes, and we don't have one of those, unfortunately. So we're going to go back in time a little bit, probably maybe the 30s, 40s. And if you look at this picture, it says Saenger down the street. Well, look how narrow that street is. So we're talking about Raynor. We're talking about single lane at the, and we're looking at how tight the buildings are. We also see the trolley car tracks and the bricks. So this is an amazing picture, but it was right in the middle of downtown. So this picture is definitely dated, and it's in black and white. So you're not going to see a whole lot of color pictures from that time period. Here's the interior of the Saenger, and we think this was taken when they were trying to do a renovation project around 1977. We're not sure.
But you said this has been renovated like 4 times?
Yes, several times. For different reasons, because of storms, because there was money, there was urban renewal and all this stuff. But look at the chandeliers that you don't see today. Mm-hmm. Look at the curtains, and look how just amazing it looks historically. So this picture might be a basis for restructuring the inside when they go to do all this.
So when they want to try to look like it did at one prior point in time, they can go, okay, use it as a little bit of a roadmap of sorts, correct? Okay.
So here's a couple of other pictures we found in that same collection accidentally. It was in Camille pictures, believe it or not. Had nothing to do with Camille, but these were a few of the slides we found. And here we go again with the chandeliers. Very simple candy counter, but the chandeliers are amazing, and I'd love to see that back in this building again.
So there's the front. Is this a post-storm photo?
Very much so. So probably, if you notice on the left side of the Saenger, there's actually a building there. If you go out there today, it's a parking lot. So probably in the 70s when they were trying to reconfigure the streets behind us and so forth. And we have the debris probably from the building next to it. Here's another picture of
another chandelier.
There we go. We need to have those again. And there's another interior picture.
So that newspaper could not like me.
If someone wants to,
that's quite the shot there.
And there's something on the stage here as well. So you get the curtains open. You get to see a little bit more of what's on stage. You get to see a little bit more of the sides, and you can see the rows of the seats.
I think I see my assistant producer Kyle back there. Yeah, I got the title right this time. I won't do it again.
This is cool because this is probably during urban renewal. If you look at this building today, it doesn't look like that. So what they're doing in urban renewal, they covered up the bricks, the original bricks on the buildings, and they put the plastic and all the facade and all this.
They just put a facade on it.
And you could see the process, but guess what? They didn't mess with the Saenger. Thank goodness.
Funny thing is, I think my grandmother had that exact same color and car.
So here we have a map, and we have these in our library system, which is amazing. Maps done by a fire insurance company all over the United States. This particular map is important because it shows the Saenger Theater probably about 1929, right after it was open. It's got addresses on it. There's some symbolic things in it as far as whether it was brick or wood or whatever. So there's a lot of information on these maps. But the important thing is it does show Saenger, and there's a little bit more information on the building itself, and it will tell you whether it's a night watchman or whatever.
Why do you think the Saenger itself is important to the local community?
The Saenger is probably one of the most amazing buildings here. When you think about it, this is probably the only building that everyone went to. Okay, if we have all these historic buildings nearby. We have churches, we have other things. A lot of the movie theaters are not here anymore. And if it's a church, not everybody goes to that church, right? City Hall is, oh God, amazing if you've been inside of it. And it's old and it's well cared for. But you don't go to City Hall unless you have a problem or a meeting or something like that. So this is the building that everybody went to, whether it was a symphony, a concert, Johnny Rivers came here, you can see that, whether it was a movie years ago, dance recitals, I mean, it just goes on and on. This is the place. That's why it's so important that we keep it. It's not only about the building, but it's about the memories and the culture.
And bringing them all back.
Sure, exactly the way it was.
Jane, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we will be right back. We are back. Our second guest tonight has, such an amazing story. After losing his leg in a motorcycle accident, he pushed himself through the pain and sorrow in his recovery, and just recently achieved his dream of re-entering the boxing ring. And he won. You don't want to miss this story. Please give it up for fighter J.R. Flowers. JR, a short version of how JR came to be on the show was a few weeks ago I went to Island Fights 59 in Pensacola, and I'd seen him around a couple of times before. JR, tell us a little bit about your story first. You were originally an MMA fighter, right?
Yes, sir. 10 years I fought and trained mixed martial arts. I trained with various people in the various professional fighters in Pensacola.
And then about a year ago, you had a motorcycle accident and you lost your leg in that wreck, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what you've got now is prosthetic, right?
Yes, sir.
And then it was a little over a couple weeks ago, was the Island Fights 59.
Yes, sir.
It was a Saturday night, and you got back in the ring.
Yeah.
And fought. It wasn't MMA, right?
No,
but it was
MMA.
it was a 3-round boxing match.
3-round boxing match. They only let me do 2-minute rounds, because it was my first one back. They didn't want to exhaust me too much, but I've been training, so.
And this is something people can probably look up and watch now. There's probably on social media, maybe even your social media?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Island Fights 59. Just look up Island Fights 59 J.R. Flowers and pull it right up.
The inspirational thing here is that, and what made me want you on the show was I was at that fight and I saw you step in the ring and you fought 3 full rounds, and he didn't treat you lightly. He fought you like an opponent that had both legs, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
And at the end,
I stood victorious with my hand raised.
and then you went from standing victorious with your hand raised.
So much emotion. They tried to turn us to face the crowd. As soon as they tried to turn us, my legs just gave out. From one being in the fight for 3 rounds, 2, and then all the energy in the ring. There's a lot of energy going on in there.
So you had the wreck. You were engaged at the time of the motorcycle wreck, right?
Yes, sir.
And you were working your way up through the ranks in the MMA community, right?
Right.
And then, like right after you lose your leg, she leaves you.
Yes.
And then you were, I guess, in a wheelchair? Probably about 3 months, 4 months.
Wheelchair for 3 months. That's part of the hardest part of the time of the whole recovery was those 3 months.
And at what point did you? I know that had to be remarkably depressing. I've had a lot of clients who've suffered similar injuries to yours, and it's really difficult for them, especially from a mental standpoint. It's really easy to get into a really bad mental place.
Yes.
And I know from speaking with you earlier, you went there for a period, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And then what got you out of it?
It was the fact that I come to a place of realizing that, a lot of people get help. A lot of people, you're willing to help a lot of people. But in my case, I didn't have that. I didn't have people coming to help me. And when I realized that there was nobody coming, there was nobody going to help me, I did something about it. I had no other choice but to. I didn't have a choice. I was left with nothing.
Now, when you wanted to get back in the ring, you had a tough time finding somebody to fight you.
Oh man, didn't nobody want to fight somebody who was handicapped? What's
There's no upside for them.
There's no upside for
because
that.
Because if they win, they beat the handicapped guy, and if they lose, they got beat by the handicapped guy.
It's like getting into a butt kicking contest with a one-legged man and getting beat by the one-legged man in a butt kicking contest. Nobody wants that. Nobody wanted that.
But there was a fighter who
stood up.
Stood up. Yeah. And even though he lost the fight, I mean, you have to give props to the guy for giving you that chance.
Yeah.
And
it's not an easy loss to take. You know, coming from a fighter, coming from a man, that's not an easy loss to take. You know, beating somebody who is not at the same qualities you have, or getting beat by somebody that's a lesser person, you know what I'm saying? So what people would think because of my disability.
But like I said earlier, I mean, for those people who watch the fight, you can watch the fight. He didn't take it easy. I mean, he gave you some shots to the head.
He was trying to knock me out.
Now, we talked a little bit about what some of your goals are now, and tell us a little bit about those now.
Well, my goals is I want to be an inspiration. That's my main thing. I've done something nobody's ever done before. My biggest thing is I want to help kids that are in kind of like the same situation I am. Kids who have parents who have disabilities. A lot of times those parents, they're in low income. I want to be able to give them the same kind of advantage that other kids have. And not even just the kids that have disability, parents that have disabilities, but also kids that have disabilities. They're not able to compete because nobody wants to fight somebody who has a disability because, again, so therefore there's nothing for kids that have the same issue as I have, that have all the ability that I have as well.
And I'll say this, you know, when I saw you after the fight a couple weeks ago, I told you that I had just literally earlier that day met with a client who had also lost his leg in a motorcycle wreck, and that he was going through some tough times. And the first thing you said to me was, "Oh,
set me up a meeting. Let me meet him.
Yeah,
let me introduce me to him."
Immediately, he volunteered and said, "Let me, have him reach out to me. Let me reach out to him." And that's really telling. So we're here in the Saenger Theater in Biloxi, and we were talking a little bit about this. You were actually involved in the renovation of the Saenger Theater in Pensacola in some capacity, weren't you?
Yes, it was. That was a very, very big job to be on because of the historical. Everybody in Pensacola goes to Saenger Theater for comedians, symphonies, and so forth.
The opera.
Yeah, everybody goes. And for something like this to, be dismissed, you have a lot of memories in places like this. I mean, I remember as a kid going to the Saenger Theater and them showing us and the oohs and the ahs and how amazing it sounded in there. And then being able to be a part of the renovation of the place was awesome. It was just amazing.
JR, I thank you so much for coming. How can people follow you on social media so that they can follow your story and follow what's going on with you and get this inspiration?
They can look me up on Facebook, JR Flowers. YouTube, I have, again, the YouTube fight with Island Fights 59. Look up JR Flowers versus Mark Halford.
JR, thank you so much for coming, man.
Thank you for this opportunity, man.
And thank you for just being such an inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
That is our show for tonight. Thank you so much to Ms. Jane Shambra for joining us, as well as fighter JR Flowers. Mo Giles, take us home.